We are three friends exploring connection from the coffee shop to the podcast studio. I'm Amy.
I'm Anna.
I'm Aaron.
All right, welcome back, everybody. To kick off our episode today, we're going to start off with Anna with a correction from last episode.
All right, so I totally butchered the Lost Connections author's name. I called him Johan, and it's actually Johan. So needed to correct that.
Well done.
Sorry, Johan. I'm really sorry about that.
All right. And then just right off the bat, a few announcements. Our email is up and running. So make sure, big day.
Exciting.
Woo. Feel free to reach out at hello@lessalonepodcast.com. We would love to hear from you. We also have Instagram at Less Alone Podcast, Twitter at Less Alone Pod. We have a website now, lessalonepodcast.com.
A lot going on here.
Yes, we do.
Well done.
This is announcement corner.
Just going through the list. We're going to have a newsletter. So you can find out all this information. The best place to go is the website. But more importantly, maybe, is our Less Alone podcast group.
Yes.
Yep.
So again, find more information on the website. We also have a phone number. So in case email isn't your thing, you can do a phone call.
Yeah.
Voicemail.
Yeah.
Leave a message.
Yeah.
Leave
Ask
a
a question.
message.
Say
Tell
something
us
about
what's
the
going
podcast.
on.
Yeah.
Yep. And that number is 775-591-8860. And then also, of course, find us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Find us everywhere. And subscribe and share.
Please. And thank you.
Anna, you want to talk a little bit about that giveaway?
Yeah, so today is our big launch. We are doing 2 episodes today. So episode 1 and episode 2, this episode will be released on the same day. And we're giving away some Starbucks gift cards. So for the first 30 people that rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcast, go ahead and do a screenshot and then send it to us at hello@lessalonepodcast.com. And the first 30 people will get a Starbucks gift card. So definitely get in on that.
Absolutely.
All right. And then that's it for Announcement Corner, right?
Announcement corner. That we just coined that right now.
Done.
Announcement corner.
We got it. So the next is, we had left our last episode talking about a couple tasks or to-dos. That's in my world. And
true.
Otherwise, just things to work on. And so we all thought it'd be good to start off with that.
Do we want a refresher of what that was?
Take it away, Anna.
Go ahead.
So the assignment you two gave yourselves was...
I just copied Amy.
was the 3 questions, right? So
Right.
the new people that you meet, or was it new people or just people in general?
People.
Just people in general, to ask 3 questions, like 3 follow-up questions. And so how did that go for you?
Mostly, it went well. However, sometimes people do not appreciate follow-up questions. And so, yes. And so I really am just being curious about the other person and following up and asking questions. And so sometimes that can come off as too intense and like I'm being too invasive, but really I don't have an agenda. But I think sometimes when you ask lots of questions, it disarms people because that's not how, if you ask someone, how are you doing? Then it's just kind of like a hello, right? And if you follow up with more questions, then people are either like, oh, this feels really good, or like, you need to get out of my space.
Yeah. So like, how did you know people felt uncomfortable? Like,
you can tell by body language. We'll get into that later in the episode. Or you can also tell because it can be a one-sided conversation.
Oh, okay. Like one-word answers.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely tone and body language are huge in that
the
task.
arms crossed back up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Stop asking questions.
Slowly
done,
walking
thank
away.
you. Okay. I have to go to the bathroom.
Welcome to my interrogation.
I just want to know more about you. Right.
So overall, would you say it went well or not so well?
No, I think it's great because I think it bridges connection, and I really like that. I think that if I'm asking and my intention is pure, is the only word I can think of, then that's not really on me. That's on the other person.
That's true.
Yeah, I have a specific example of one of my daughter's mom's friends that I really tried this. We were at like the class that they take together, and it went really well. And by the end of the class, which just happened, we were able just to kind of continue conversation lightly. Each week we saw each other, but it would not have progressed as far as it did if we didn't ask more than just the usual, because there were definitely some other parents in the class that, one question was asked, or, the engagement wasn't there. Right. And so it was really nice because by the end of the class, my daughter's got a new little friend for a play date.
Cool.
So, and that wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have been consciously continuing to ask her questions just to learn about who she is and her family. So
was this over like a period of like an hour, or was it
so the class that they were in was like an hour and a half long gardening class.
Oh.
And my daughter really liked this girl, and her mom and I just sat a few chairs away from each other and we just started talking, and she's great. It's just one of those things where it just clicked. But if I didn't ask the questions to find out more about her, then wouldn't have that connection.
Yeah.
Right.
But now I have a new connection.
That's great.
So did she start backing away at all? Did you have that experience?
Maybe that's just me.
No, but we were both, it was definitely like, I had my notebook or my phone. There was always kind of a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. So if it did get uncomfortable, I could just turn to the notebook or the phone or, but yeah, it worked.
That's cool.
It worked. What were your tasks,
So
Anna?
mine was the screen time.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Gosh, the biggest thing, I did get my usage down, the screen time thing, which is pretty good. But the biggest thing that I did was I switched to grayscale.
That is yes, it works so well. I do that.
It's horrible.
I don't know grayscale.
It works well if you.
Yeah.
That is great. That is.
I did it for 24 hours and I was like, ugh, this is horrible. But I was I'm going to try it. Yeah, you basically turn all the colors off on your phone. You can Google how to do it, anyone listening. But it makes it so it's not fun to look at your phone.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's like, I just kept telling myself, like, why in the world am I...
Black and white.
Yeah, it's so
old
boring.
School TV.
So I'm like, why in the world am I suffering through this? And I was like, oh, I said I'd do it for 24 hours. So my usage was down significantly because of that. And then also I just ended up removing, it's like...
Erin has her phone out and she is very excited about this option, showing us the grayscale.
It's horrible, but effective.
Effective.
Yeah.
Yes.
Horrible, but effective. So was your... what, did you have success?
Yeah, I would say it was successful, but...
Annoying.
It's super irritating.
Yeah.
And then also I found just deleting the troublesome apps like Reddit or Facebook or whatever it is, just delete the app. So I found success with that. Yeah, that darn
you deleted the Facebook app from your phone?
Yes.
That's a big deal for you, Anna.
Yeah, I know, right? And then
you took this task seriously.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, I take all tasks seriously.
My
all the things.
She does, as evidenced by every social media platform.
Yeah, so don't give me a challenge. I'm going to that challenge. But yeah, I would say it was successful.
Can't wait to see what happens this week.
I know, right?
Don't dare me to do anything, because I'll do it.
All right. Well, on that note, everybody, we're moving to our main topic today. Are we ready for this?
I think we're ready.
Yeah.
Today, the big topic is to discuss making friends as adults.
Mm-hmm. This is a big one.
This is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
We are adults and we are friends.
Yes.
So, how'd that happen? How did that happen?
Yeah.
All right, Anna, you found some interesting little...
Yeah.
You want to go for it?
I found some interesting things about why we need people and friends in our lives. So basically, in a nutshell, you will die without connections to others.
Oh, boy.
We've got to expand on that.
Come on, Anna. Having these like horrible things, like
right?
The orphans last time.
That's right.
Okay, really, I'm not that grim. I promise. Okay, but so according to
extreme, maybe. Grim, no.
Right. Extreme.
Oh yeah.
She's all in.
Yes.
That's right.
Extreme, yes. Grim, not so much. Okay, so according to a 2010 report in the Journal of Health and Social Behavior, having Having social ties can boost your immune system and help you live longer, more fulfilling life. It can also decrease the risk of heart disease and high blood pressure, as well as reduce the impact of stress and chronic pain. And then there's another article I found in Inc.com that says there's a definite payoff to making real, not just professional or social media friends. Increasing your number of friends correlates to higher subjective well-being. In fact, doubling your number of friends is like increasing your income by 50% in terms of how happy you'll feel. So that's pretty humongous.
Super interesting.
And then I found this really interesting medical journal all about social relationships and mortality risk. And this is pretty controversial, I found as I was reading about it. But social isolation is pretty bad for human health. And past studies showed that people with fewer social relationships die earlier on average than those with more social relationships. So they are, let's see, right up there, comparable with well-established risk factors for mortality, such as smoking and alcohol consumption, and exceed the influence of other risk factors, such as physical inactivity and obesity. So huge. So huge reasons about why we need others in our lives and why friendships are so important. And, we kind of wanted to establish like why connections and friendships are so important as we dive into this topic. And I think those are some pretty compelling facts.
It does lend me to question or wonder, though, like, is it about the quality of them or the number of them? These examples are definitely compelling, as far as like there's clearly an importance to having friends or social connections and social relationships just for basic human health, it sounds like.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings us to like the next topic is how many friends do we really need?
Oh, right. There is.
Someone did a study on that.
Yeah. So actually, Johan Hari.
Hey, Johan.
He's back with I was doing more research on him and what he's all about in his book, Lost Connections. And he actually has a quiz and on his website, which is fascinating. And he says that loneliness and depression and anxiety, there's a link between that and close friendships. And one scientific study, asked Americans for decades how many close friends they have who they can call on in a crisis. And when they began the study, the most common answer was 5 people. And the most common answer now is none.
Which is crazy.
So nuts, right? And
it's so sad.
Yeah, we're like literally crying.
I know.
This is horrible. Yeah. Western culture is the loneliest society ever, and there's a strong evidence that loneliness increases depression. So I'm curious, like, how many friends do you two have, and like, how many friends do you have, and what do you think is like a good number?
I think that's kind of hard to answer.
Is that hard to answer? Okay.
I think I have a couple friends from each section of life. So from childhood, I have a couple friends. From high school, I have a couple friends. From college, I have a couple friends. I worked at this camp in Estes Park, and I have several friends from there.
Yeah.
And I think it's every section of life, but I also keep in touch with them.
I got to just say, like, going through some crises at the
moment.
Yeah. I think for me, like, there are 5, 6, 7, probably 5 or 6 people that like I call and they are ready. They like pick up the phone. They're offering whatever I need, and it's almost like I start feeling overwhelmed going to more than that, but also just really feeling safe with that kind of basket, of people.
That you can fall into people.
I can. Yeah.
Well, and I think that you actually are able to ask for and accept help. Like that's so huge because a lot of people don't do that.
I think if I didn't do that right now with what's going on, I feel like I am being carried right now, and
without sounding cheesy, like that's what ultimately that I think is what friends are for. That is that when we can be there for each other when things are hard, when things are good, but like when we're in crisis, the people that you can really like fall into, and that some people overuse that your friends are your chosen family, but I also think that there's a lot of truth to that. Like people that you choose to have in your tribe is That's a big deal.
Mhm.
And when
Yeah,
those people
for
can
sure.
show up for us, any kind of old stuff that we have, I think, begins to heal because
Mhm.
those people are able to help with that
Mhm.
and to be cared for in that way. I mean, that like the whole thing of it takes a village to raise people, or that we just don't have that anymore. And so it sounds like you're creating your village to help you through this, or you have created this. And so I just think that it's super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's just so sad that so many people say zero.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about like,
And how hard life would be.
Oh my
you know,
gosh,
if you
yeah.
if you had no one who you felt like you could turn to.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of wrote down a quick list too to see how many I had as far as like close people. And
Yeah.
it was like 7-ish, just to kind of get an idea of
Yeah.
like, how many are there? Just kind of thinking about this topic and stuff. But yeah, it's really interesting. Have either of you heard of Dunbar's number?
No.
No.
So I was doing a lot of research on this.
Good.
Okay, there is this evolutionary anthropologist named Robin Dunbar, and apparently he's dubbed this thing called Dunbar's number as 148 is a magical number, oftentimes rounded up to 150. And it's attributed to this guy, Robin Dunbar, who has stated that 150 people is a point beyond which members of any social group lose their ability to function effectively in social
I have
relationships.
heard about this. Yes.
Yeah, so he has said that this group of 150 people
Yeah.
is made up of 5 intimate friends, so that's interesting.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And then 15 good friends, which include the 5 intimate friends.
Uh-huh.
And then 50 friends, which include the 5 intimate and 15 good friends. And then 150 acquaintances.
So I was
When that-
watching a video of doing research for this, and so they had it on animals that can make friends. So they had horses
Oh, no way.
and primates and elephants. I don't know what else was on there, but that is exactly, they had showed
Oh,
the different
wow.
circles, and it was even that they had people in their immediate, and then the 15 different circles of
Wow.
it, even with animals that can make friends, which was fascinating.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That it's so basic, like evolutionary.
Yes. Biologically wired that
yeah.
way, that we need people.
And I found this other guy, this anthropologist on Reddit, actually, who's focused on friendship.
Okay.
And he had some really interesting things to say about the Dunbar's number. And that there was a question of like, okay, I have 500 Facebook friends, but I feel so lonely. What am I doing wrong? And the problem is that you probably have made up for your loneliness by adding more friends rather than having deeper friendships. And so how vulnerable have you been with those friends? So that goes back to what we were just talking about with you, Amy. I think you have a real gift of being able to feel safe enough to be vulnerable in this crisis situation, which allows us to wrap you up and be there for
Catch
you.
you.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a gift for the other people too. Because people just want to
totally.
be able to help. And so when the person that is in crisis can lean into the others, then it's like that's also a giving and receiving thing on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People love to help, and yeah, it's definitely a gift. And I noticed when I had my son, I was given the tip of accept help.
Yes,
and it was
I
like
remember that too
the
for me, my kids. Yeah.
one thing that I had people actually say, like, I'm so glad that you let me help. And like, so people, they were like, what can we do? And I was like, you can bring food over. And they were like, thank you for saying
Yes.
that. Like,
yes.
like we had our whole, I mean, we had our whole fridge full of like, from the generosity of people just wanting to help. And like, they felt so good being able to help. And then obviously it felt good for us to be able to eat.
Yes.
And like, but to be able to just say, I need help right now. And this is not working right now. I need you guys to help me out. Like,
Yeah.
it just works for everyone if you're just honest and vulnerable and
Right.
not trying to act like you got it all together, I guess.
Right.
Right.
And then, do you mind if I ask Erin about like how does being honest and vulnerable from like a therapist point of view?
Uh-huh.
You're the resident expert on all things
All
relationships.
things are good. Yeah. Well.
But how does that, like, when we're able to show up and be honest and vulnerable, how does that aid in connection?
Well, because I think Brene Brown talks about this. I was thinking about that as you were talking, and she said that your ability to ask for help, if you're always offering to help, but you can never ask for help, then you are always coming from a place of judgment when you're offering help, because it's like you are good enough to give help, but you are not, it's not okay for you to receive. And so
interesting.
That's very interesting.
Underneath all of that, then there's judgment like ladled with it because...
Oh, I would never guess that.
Yes. And so I thought that that's super fascinating.
Because like it's assumed that you're only kind of able to give it, but you'd never ask, like in a, I don't know, with a kind of an attitude about,
not with
or
an
just
attitude,
the
but
judgment is
like
the,
if that
you're too,
like I can give you, but if I ask to receive, then something must be wrong with me. And if I think it's something is wrong with me asking for help, then underneath the surface, then something is wrong with you because you are asking for help.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I would never have
that's
articulated or thought that, I guess. Huh.
Do you think that's true?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like that's the whole thing with also basic connection as an adult, where as an adult, especially if you're not able to ask for help, I mean, that just makes you more human, you know, when you're able to ask for help or when you're able to be vulnerable and be like, I can't do that, you know, like I need the help. And then your friends are there or, you know, whomever, family or whatever, that they want to help. People in general, I feel like if you have a basic connection with someone that like you click with someone, they want to help you, you know, like that.
Friends want to.
Yeah. And it's a give and take.
There,
I mean, you know, I want to help you guys want to help me. It just is, it's a give and take. And so I can totally see how that is true, you know.
For sure. I've never thought about it.
She's thinking
She's
now.
thinking. I'm like, oh crap! Am I letting people be there for me? I mean, I did with my son's birth, but other than that, I'm like, I guess I do. Yeah, I call Aaron with questions.
Yeah,
Aaron, help me with this.
Yeah,
please.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I know that there was something. I was just looking at my journal because I know I had written a note in there somewhere about something related to business and that there's a cap point at which companies,
it's 150.
It's Dunbar's number, right? Like that's the same study.
It's exactly the same.
We'll say more about that. What I don't know that.
I don't know enough to talk very deeply about this, but it's my understanding that there's this magic number 150 that once you pass 150, there's a level of connection that's lost, and in that lost connection is also a loss of effectiveness. And so in the workplace and professionally, it's, you know, if you think about how businesses might be structured, like big ones and the groupings that they have, there's something about the 150 that makes it kind of your critical cutoff.
Yeah, I did find that number in the when I was doing the research with the Dunbar's number, and it's with business places. There's the recommendation of once you hit 150 for the business, start another branch. So you're able to have another branch and have better connections.
Yeah. So you can be efficient, right?
Yeah.
And effective.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What else do we have here, ladies?
Okay, so should we talk about the stages of life?
We should
talk
about the stages of life.
Aaron, take it away. You've got stages of life.
I think that there's something to be said about adult friendships and stages of life. So if you hung out with people in your 20s and then some people got married and some people then had kids and some people stay single, I think then it's finding the deeper thing to connect about, because sometimes stages of life, just because how busy people are, I think that they get pulled away. And then if a relationship isn't necessarily strong or things just shift and change, then it's adult friendships can change in that way. And that it can be an okay thing. And sometimes it can be really painful for one part or the other. And it has nothing to do with that person necessarily, or it could just be the stages of life that people are in.
Yeah, for sure.
What did you find when, Aaron, like when you got married, did you see a shift or did you notice anything like that?
Well, when I got married, because my husband has a daughter, and so that was immediately going into, well, I guess that happened before we got married, but immediately functioning as a step parent was a big learning curve for me, because to be going from a single life and kind of I can live by the seat of my pants, and then I'm coupled in a relationship and I'd been single for a while, and then to have someone that has a kid on top of that, then it's I think it's just trying to adjust and figure out timing. And then because I used to hang out with my friends all the time, and then there was less for that, so then I it's just figuring it out more than anything. But there was definitely a learning curve to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Not good or bad, just is. You know?
Right. I remember that too. I mean, I remember, getting married, and then like everybody around though was also getting married. So it was just kind of it felt very much like the trend, you know, and then it was just kind of like what you said, people who didn't, I did just kind of see them less or whatever. And then with kids, and there are a few that really have like some of my really close friend, isn't in like no kids and not married, but she'll like sweep, there hasn't been any connection lost. But I would say in general that the stages do kind of walk through life with people in similar stages, and then those bonds, because again, it's like you've got all that conversation topics. I mean, it's
that's
like
a good point.
There's just more to talk about if you're in a similar stage, I feel like.
And I think schedule-wise, because we were even talking about when we were having coffee and for this podcast, is that we had the ability to meet during the day because of the schedules and the work life that we have outside of this. And so it's just, I think that has a big thing to do with adult friendships, is when you can make time for each other, or how things, because during the day, then it's great. And then it's part of work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I didn't notice as big of a shift when I got married as I did when I had my son. So like all of a sudden, like I went from working in like a traditional job to, okay, I'm going to work for myself. I'm actually going to do this, right? I got my book deal soon after that. And I found myself so isolated and so lonely and so like, what the hell did I get myself into? Like here, I thought I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and then finding myself answering emails and feeling like, oh gosh, like feeling more like myself. And I remember at one point walking around the park and looking for other women like that looked like they had little babies with them. And like this one lady in particular, I like kind of walked super fast to catch up to her and just started talking to her. And I'm like, can I walk with you?
Was she receptive?
Yeah, she was. Yeah. She was totally like receptive, but I was just like, I haven't really talked to anybody in a week. Oh my gosh, and then like
that's a hard time with a new baby.
Oh my gosh, it was so hard. But
was she feeling similar?
Yeah, it was like we didn't ultimately end up becoming besties or anything, but it was nice for that day. And but it was just like, man, just remembering how lonely that felt, and just like, where is everybody? Like, I need that connection.
Because I think that sometimes that stuff, that different life phases can be painful for people, because like if someone is single and they are in a group of people that are all married, then they go to another wedding, and then that they're, of course they want to be happy for that person that's getting married, but then it's super painful when that person, when they don't have someone and that's what they want. Or like there's a lot of people in my life that are having issues with fertility or with children, and then people that being around little babies or people that have kids, like that is super painful. And so then it's holding space for both people, and then understanding, and I think that's just a life stage that people are at, and to be aware of that, because I think it's real easy to get in your own track.
Yeah,
of like, this is just what it is, and stepping outside to see someone else's experience. So, yeah.
I think too, when I had my kids, I was really into their schedule, so much so that it completely changed my schedule. And I was really into like, I was pretty rigid about bedtimes and all that stuff. And so just naturally, my life really changed, because all of a sudden these kids were going to bed at 7 p.m., and I'm home, like 7 p.m. Monday through Sunday,
pajamas
or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Bedtime story. Amy snoozing.
Yes, exactly. So I feel like that alone, it was a real like black and white change for me, like pretty dramatic, where I wasn't going out.
Right. Yeah. Right. Done and done.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got stages of life, and we've got chemistry.
I've heard like that a lot of making friends is that it's kind of like dating. Just with, like I mentioned in the last episode that I asked on my Facebook profile, like, do you find it hard to make friends? And like a lot of people were like, yes, for sure. And then some people said it was a lot like dating, and like they just didn't want to put that energy into that. I don't know. I haven't necessarily found that to be my experience, but I thought it was interesting that people compared it to dating, and, but I definitely do think that friendships have a lot to do with like chemistry. Like there's no way I'd probably do the 6 a.m. coffee with other, people I didn't like totally click with, because it'd be like, oh, I'm not enjoying it that much before go sleep. But
I'm feeling really good about myself now.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about how immediate that decision was, though, to make 6 a.m. coffee work. And I feel like that does speak to just kind of chemistry, where it was like, I mean, I vividly remember like talking to you, Aaron, in the like one night, and it was like, well, I do this 6 a.m. coffee. You can come if you want or whatever. Yeah. And it was just like, yeah. And then it just happened that,
and going into that, then because you two had been hanging out, and then I was like, well, I like them. Yeah. And so I want to go.
Yeah.
And then it just set in right.
Yeah.
And just felt right. And then it
clicked.
Clicked. And so then I kept coming.
Yeah. So I think that's real. I think that's legit. And I also feel like it's something we had talked about a little bit, maybe last episode, about how like, and sometimes if it doesn't click, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I mean, but like it doesn't mean someone's a bad person or not. It's just like
it's seriously just like, well, it just doesn't click.
So keep trying with other people, which in a lot of ways I suppose is like dating, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't, if it's what you want, if you want connection with people, you can't stop trying.
Yeah.
I think people get really hung up on that.
I do too.
I think people take everything too personally.
Right.
And it's like, I've been just trying to live my life of like, this has absolutely nothing to do with me.
Yes.
And it's like helped so much. Like that, it's the book, Four Agreements.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so good. It's called The Four Agreements. And there's one of the agreements is, it has nothing to do with you.
Don't take things personally.
Yeah. It's so good because it's like, and ever since I read that, I've been like, this has nothing to do with me.
Right.
And it's just so like,
or like what other people
freeing.
think is none of your business.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's like that same thing, right? It's like, I don't know. I guess when I'm in a good place, I mean, it's always easier said than done.
Oh, yeah, of course, for sure.
But it does make sense, and I think too, like it will alleviate some pressure. If you don't have the pressure of like, you want them to like you or you want them to.
Well, and this sounds just like sales too, because it's like, when you're in, and you have a history of doing sales too. And it's like, if you're so desperate to get the sale, like people can feel that. But if you're like, I'm good or I'm doing my thing, and if you buy it and you like it, that's great. If not, that's fine too.
But it's also just like value. Like, from like a selling perspective, it's like, listen, here's the product I have. You will find this either valuable or you will not. You will find this to be beneficial for your business or you will not. And like, well, fine. Either way.
Yeah.
And then moving
it's like
on to the next one.
A confidence about yourself and your vibe and just saying like, you know what, I'm good either way.
Right. That's huge.
I would love to be friends with you if you're not feeling it or whatever, like in the dating world, like, you're not into me, whatever, that's got more to do with you than me,
Right. When we opened the business and we were marketing, and since I'm a therapist and we marketing was for me, like was not a product. It's like how I
Cali
am.
Institute.
And so that took us a while to work through that, because it's like, oh, you're marketing yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm the product. And then we're doing other things now, but that took a lot of work, because then it's like, well, the right clients will come to me, and not everybody is the right client for me.
Yeah,
and so really like then settling that in and believing that has made all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Because it's personal, I feel like, like selling a product is one thing. There's not as much of a personal attachment. But like when you're the product and you're a person, that
it
takes
is hard, but
work.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as that. It's if this is not the right product, or I'm not the right person for you, then the right people will trusting that the right people will come to me.
Trusting.
And making that switch was tough.
Yeah.
I think I'm thinking about a breakup. You apply that concept to a breakup or a separation.
Right.
And it's like, God, I wish I could just be that kind of emotionally detached, or, like, okay, this is not working anymore or whatever, but when it's so personal, it's just, and I mean, maybe that's harder, because you have a history and all of that. Maybe it's a different topic, I guess, like when you think about it in terms of like you've had this relationship or whatever, or, you've had a client forever, or you've had, maybe you have purchased a product for a long time. And then all of a sudden that switches. If you can lovingly kind of be like, okay, this is not, this product
or it used to be the right fit for me. And now it's not the right fit for me.
Right. So,
or like client-wise, if I'm working with someone for a really long time and we've gotten to a certain place and then they find this other treatment, they're like, oh, I need to do that, then go do that because that's the thing that you intuitively feel like you need, then please do that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do feel like what you said about just trusting, that it's like you have to be, and Anna, you said like the security too. I think it's like trusting and security, like those two things, to be able to be in a position where it's like, hey, we click, great. Hey, we don't click, great.
Well, there's a certain confidence that you have to have and secureness in yourself and your situation of like, I know that I'm inherently wonderful, and and the services I offer or the friendship that I offer is great. I'm a great person. I know that deep down, and if they don't see that value, then that's on them.
Right. And it's interesting because if we talk like the inherent worthiness piece, I think a lot of people, especially in my line of work, struggle with inherent worthiness.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to explain it to people. But then if you look at a baby and then you're just like, oh, of course they're inherently worthy. Like they don't have to do anything.
Perfect.
Yes, they don't have to do anything. But then when do people lose that?
Yeah.
Not everyone loses that, but a lot of people lose that. But the worthiness that the baby has, everyone has that.
Yeah.
And so, but you're right that it takes a certain level of confidence to be able to.
And maturity too, in a level of like, and I think doing work on yourself.
Okay.
So here's a great quote. Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people. Eleanor Roosevelt.
So
Aaron, take it away.
I love that quote because particularly with the two of these people, with Amy and Anna, because the reason I was drawn into and connected and feel like our friendship clicked is because we were able to just discuss ideas and things that we were stoked about. And there was almost this unspoken rule that we didn't talk about other people, which was a relief for me because I feel like sometimes in other female relationships that I've had, there is this underlying, like, we're going to start talking about people, and it makes me squirm on the inside because gossiping is not my thing. I think there's a difference between venting and gossiping when you need to talk through something that you're struggling with. Yeah. But that's some of the things that I loved about our friendship from the beginning, and that we still have that now.
Yeah. Yeah, we just don't gossip, and I think that is what aids in making it feel like a safe space for us to like open up and be vulnerable, is because we know no one's going to be out talking to who knows who about all of our business. It's like, they don't do that. We don't do that.
Right. Because if someone is gossiping with you, then they're probably gossiping about you to someone else.
Definitely.
So then it's like, that's not a great way to build a connection, people.
Yeah.
So have you been in a situation, either of you, where someone is gossiping? Like, how do you get out of that? Like, if you don't want to have those kind of interactions with people, do you actively say, hey, I'm not into gossiping, I don't want to do that? Or do you just not interact with that person anymore, or like not tell them any juicy things?
I haven't had that in a while, but I think that now I have enough like internal oomph that I would be like, that just doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
I know I've tried, like in the past, just try to divert, you know, like, okay, that's their thing. Or I think you can gracefully disengage or gracefully redirect conversation without being like, hold up, I don't do gossip, you know, like
that would be awkward.
That would be kind of weird.
I think that's why most people would probably not do that, is because of the fear of being like, oh, this is going to be so awkward.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's also worth
I think
it.
it's also like,
it's in some ways it might be right.
For sure. I mean, I remember a situation where it was like people I wasn't super close with. It was like a kind of a business thing, and they were kind of talking about someone else, and it was like they kept ragging on this person, and it was just so uncomfortable. And it was like, how do we get out of this situation? It was the people I was with, we weren't engaging in it, and later it got brought up of like, that was so uncomfortable. But we ended up leaving, and then I found that I started distancing myself from that group because I was like, this does not feel safe. And I don't want to be a part of a group that does that because that doesn't align with my core values of integrity and all of that, and it's like, I guess it comes back to like knowing who you are. And that's what it was that you said.
What?
Knowing who you are, like now with your relationships, it's like you know who you are. So it's like the quantity doesn't matter as much as like the quality.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing that we had talked about, which I guess is just in general level of vulnerability.
Right. Which we talk a lot today.
Right.
But I think that
is there anything else, I guess, that we should
with adult friendships, I think that our level of vulnerability or your level individually of vulnerability that you can drop into has a lot to do with how much personal work you've done and internal processing and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because my level, I've done a lot of work, and you two have as well. And so the level that you can drop into of like let's underneath the surface might be different than someone else's. And so that forges connection because some people might find it really uncomfortable. Like, hey, why are we talking about this? But I'm not talking about anything that's super personally that I haven't processed through, but I might appear as if I'm really open and being very vulnerable, which I am because I have processed through my stuff. So I think that there's a difference. And I think that with adult friendships, the level that you can drop to has to be compatible.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
Yes. Right. Because if someone's looking for, kind of an easy conversation.
Don't talk to me.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Well, Anna and I know that to be true.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we do talk about such like deeper level things. It's like when I'm in other situations, I'm like, well, gosh, I don't really want to talk about the weather. Like, can we talk about feelings? Like, how are you really feeling?
Yeah. Like, what's really happening?
Yeah. Like, let's really talk.
Let's just dive right into your business strategy.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But what's your
Yeah. There's not a lot of
let's get to the meat.
Exactly. Let's get to the meat.
Because the shallow conversations, it's fine, but I almost loathe them.
Yeah.
But I also feel like for some people, that may be how they connect. Is just like,
and that's great.
They want shallow or they not even, that's like such a judgmental word, right? But it's like, maybe they are just, they want it to be light. Like I think there's value there too, where like people, they want to stay light. They want to keep things light and easy. And like, that's how they connect with people. And so I think that's great. And then it makes sense that for them to feel connection, they have to find someone, like you just said, that their level is compatible.
Right.
So,
well, I don't think that it's not a bad thing.
Right.
That's just not my thing.
Right. Yes.
Not in a judgmental way. Like if that's where people are comfortable, great.
Yes. Then just find a matching level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Level matching.
Yeah. What did you take away from today? Level matching.
Level matching. Yeah.
All right. So the other thing we talked about is like just in general, good old body language. And, there's that thing, the old resting bitch face.
Mm-hmm.
How's that word for connection?
I love that you said that in your like perfect radio voice. Resting bitch face. Coming in, sounding great. Yeah, so it's like this whole idea of showing up and being like open to connection. And like, I know for myself, like a lot of times I find myself working in a coffee shop and it's like, when I'm working, it's like shut down mode. I'm not making eye contact. I'm not going to be smiling. I don't want to be starting any conversations. Don't bug me. I'm going to put in my earphones and make sure we don't have any connection.
I do that on airplanes all the time. Oh, no.
But it's like, then there's the stark contrast of like when I'm in an open space and like wanting to connect, it's like, okay, no crossed arms and no earbuds and obviously, and then like smiling and just kind of like being warm and making eye contact and stuff and repeating someone's name.
But resting bitch face, some people can't help that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
it's a thing.
Someone told me it's like, this is just my face. It's like, oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Well, and then also, if you are wanting to like make connections with people, just realizing like, oh man, I do have this RBF thing happening. Maybe I should work on how my resting bitch face rests.
So we talked about how I was in sales.
Yep.
Mhm.
And there was one job I had. It was an inside sales position, and we would have a mirror on our desk in our cube. And when we picked up the phone to dial potential clients, customers, whatever, we had to look at ourselves like in the mirror. And
wow.
And it was the train. We were trained on this, all this stuff. But the idea is that if you pick up that phone and you're smiling, so like smile and dial, right? That's the whole thing. Because it's true.
It changes
like
your
voice changes, your whole effect changes, and it's real.
Yeah.
If you
For
take
sure.
I don't know if what the research is on this, but if you take a pencil and put it in your mouth and hold it, I just put a pencil in my mouth.
Yes.
In between my
clang.
teeth. But it makes the corners of your mouth go up. And if you hold it, I think 2 minutes, that it changes what's happening in your body.
Oh,
Crazy,
Whoa,
right?
that's
Yeah.
a good tip.
Yeah.
Also, just faking the smile, like
Oh my God, I like that tip. Pen is going in the
I
mouth.
want to
Yeah, you're having
I
to
need
put
to
the
take a
timer on.
picture of
Yeah.
you doing that, and I'm gonna put it on our Instagram.
Yes. What was it? For 2 minutes?
I think.
You know, you can also do it when, like, I've done this before, speaking gigs and stuff, like stand in like
Oh,
a
yeah.
power stance with like your
Oh.
arms on your hips and like.
Yeah. The Amy Cuddy TED Talk.
Oh, is that what she says?
Yeah.
Oh.
And this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't know where I got that from.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad you said that. And then in the mirror, like I always find myself, I tell myself, not only can I do this, I will do this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like just repeat it over and over. Not only can I do this, I will do this. It's like I bring out my Hulk. It's like
The
here
sweetest
we go.
person ever. You should see her face right now. Like, I'm gonna get this.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna nail it.
That's a good little mantra,
Yeah.
though, Anna.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I know my
I feel
mantras.
like that's
I got
another
my
thing, though,
mantras.
that I'll have to look up the training of who we did the mirrors
Mhm.
stuff
Yeah.
with, too, and put that on the website.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
link to all these
Yeah.
resources and stuff.
Well, those are great tips. And I think we've got a couple other tips that we found
Yeah.
we've got a few here from the New Yorker and a few from Business Insider.
Yeah.
And then
How to make
Anna's got
friends.
some personals.
Oh, and you guys too. Not just me.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, really quick, I have to say one thing that I was telling my husband what this episode was going to be about, like how to make friends, and he's like, "Oh, I know exactly how to make friends." I was like, "Well, tell me," because he's
Yeah.
this introverted guy. He's not like Mr. Charismatic or whatever. And I'm like, "So what's the secret, Mister?" He goes, "Mustache, baby, puppy." He's like, "You got one of those, you're golden."
He's on to something.
And
Wow.
then he dared me to a friend making contest.
Oh.
How fun.
Which I did not take him up
Oh,
on. He's like,
okay.
I bet you I go out there, I could make way more friends than you in like one afternoon or 20 minutes. I'm like, what?
That's
But maybe
really
I should
funny.
take him up on that just
so
for
you
the
can
heck
have
of it.
research for the show.
Yeah, maybe I
That would
should.
also be funny if we opened that up to the audience. Like, does anyone have any like good what do you think are like the key things?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then test your theory and let us know.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh.
Yeah, tell us on the,
I like that.
the voicemail
Yeah.
in the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think your husband should be participating in
I
this.
think so,
he's got to
too.
test his theory
Yeah,
and let
that's
us
a good
know.
Call. Good
Yeah.
call. Speaking of the number is 775-591-8860. So get your pen, bookmark this. Give
Good
us
plug,
a call.
Anna.
Or just look on the website. You can call it. Get the number there too if you don't have your pen handy. Okay, so do we want to talk about the practical tips on how to make friends as an adult?
Yeah, let's just run through them just in case people find them to be healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy. What?
Oh, well, okay.
Helpful.
Healthy
Yeah.
works.
Healthy, yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
So the first one, this is from the New Yorker, how to make friends as an adult. Start with proximity. Reach out to neighbors.
Yeah. And then befriend a colleague or someone who works in the same building as you.
Well, the neighbor thing I'm going to say real quick
Oh, yeah?
is that we had new neighbors that moved in next door.
Yeah, do
and
people even do that?
no, and they
anymore?
came over and introduced themselves, and
You're like,
then
"Who
we've
are
had them
you?"
over for pumpkin pie
Oh.
at one point,
That's adorable.
and then they came over to watch the Super Bowl maybe.
Oh.
But then you build a relationship, and I was like, oh, this feels like when I was a kid.
We
Yeah,
have
these
amazing
yeah.
neighbors.
It's
We've had
amazing.
amazing neighbors where we live now and where we lived before.
It's a
and
big difference.
It's a huge
Yeah.
difference.
It makes a big
It really
difference,
does.
yes.
Actually, we have really great neighbors
Yeah.
too, actually.
Yeah.
I think that helps with connection
Yeah.
on a 150
Yeah.
outer
Mhm.
level.
Yeah. My little son will knock on our neighbor's door and just to chat with Miss Gail. Yeah, so sweet.
That's so sweet.
All right. So we also have visit a nearby library, strike up a conversation with other bookish people.
So Anna was going over this in the beginning, and I was like, I would never go to a library
You're
and
like, that's
strike that
BS.
BS.
Okay, but
I would
wait,
never
though.
do that.
I gotta say something.
What?
Like, so the
You're like,
newsletters,
right?
there are a lot of opportunities in local resource, like the Botanic
That's true.
Gardens. They have all these classes.
Right, you're searching
yoga.
for a book, and you go up and
Well,
like
right.
someone's bookish,
Okay.
like, oh yeah, we're both looking up something about.
You're
Okay,
like,
but
no.
how about this?
Okay,
At the library, there are book clubs.
cool.
You could check
Great.
them out.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving forward.
Next one, join a sports league. There are all levels of time commitments, talents, and teams for athletic adults.
Another one is converse with people in exercise classes and at the gym.
Bible studies, church groups, community playgrounds for mothers of young children, arts, crafts, classes, hiking, walking, bird watching groups are additional avenues down which friendship may be procured. Butchered.
And then the Business Insider's got a few more. One is just be a regular. Some ideas, coffee shops, a dance class, trivia, or open mic night at a local brewery as a volunteer.
I do think that's true because even at the coffee shop that we go to,
Yeah.
that we have conversations with them because they're like, what are you doing in here?
yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time, like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Yes.
we got a free croissant last week, remember?
Oh, that's right.
I know.
Yeah. Too ugly to sell.
We're like, we'll take it. We'll take all your ugly croissants,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
and thank you.
Yes.
That's right.
Bottom line, keep showing up. Commit to any new activity for at least a few months. Conventional wisdom holds that 6 to 8 conversations beyond, hey, how's it going, are necessary for people before people consider us a friend. Said Business Insider, be bold. Be the one to make eye contact, shake a hand, make an introduction, and start the conversation.
Great.
Yeah, for sure. And then just a couple more tips for meeting people, meetup groups, meetup.com. You can find people that are interested in the same things you're into. And there are actually a ton of apps out there right now. None of these are sponsored. If you want to be a sponsor, let us know. But they are Bumble BFF, Peanut is great for new moms, HeyVina.com. It's kind of like Tinder, but for women friends. There are over 30 different life situations that you can find people. There's also BarkHappy.com for pet friends, find people to do dog walks with. There's also the Nextdoor app, and you can find people for local events. And then there's also Facebook for online groups. Obviously, we just mentioned things for finding in-person connections, but there are online groups like the Spending Fasters group, which a lot of our listeners are from, and then our podcast group, lessalonepodcastgroup.com. Just post what you're looking for, and if you want to do a local meetup, you can also search on Instagram for your location and what you're interested in.
All right. So we're going to close it out with our top takeaway until our next podcast. So that is going to be, drum roll,
All about honesty.
ooh,
It's good.
be honest, be
Yes.
vulnerable.
Be honest.
Have the
Be bold.
courage to be honest.
I like it.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good.
So we want to hear from you. What are your top tips for making friends? Tell us about it in the Facebook group, lessalonepodcastgroup.com.
And don't forget to call and email.
Yay. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. You can find more about this episode and a way to connect to the community at lessalonepodcast.com. And if you like us, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave a review. It helps other people find us and could be just what they need.